waiting for the stream to go up.
Okay.
And then we can start.
Okay.
It's working.
Good morning, SDEWES. I hope you had a nice sunset yesterday at the welcome. I really liked it. We were lucky. So weather is with us. Let us start with the working part. Distinguished guests, Vice Rector of Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Professor Eduardo Serra, Dean of the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture, University of Zagreb, Professor Zvonimir Guzovic, Chair of the International Scientific Committee, Professor Maria Graça Carvalho, Chair of Scientific Advisory Board, Dr. Ivo Schlaus, distinguished members of the International Scientific Committee, Scientific Advisory Board, Programming Committee, Special Session Programming Committee, Poster Session Programming Committee, Award Committee, Keynote and Panel Programming Committee, Special Issue Programming Committee, sponsors and partners, special session organizers, invited plenary lecturers, panelists, session chairs and co-chairs, session keynotes, members of the SDEWES centers, speakers and participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you in the name of the organizing committee to the 12th Conference on Sustainable Development of Energy, Water and Environment Systems. Which is organized under the patronage of the Croatian Ministry of Environment and Energy and Ministry of Science and Education. I would like to thank especially those that helped this conference by giving financial support, Croatian Ministry of Science, Education and Sports, our gold sponsors, Sea Energy 2020, which is a network of national contact points for our energy work program of the Horizon 2020. They are here. Please visit their stand, their session, and find out what Europe will finance in the coming years. And also Interreg project, our other gold sponsor, CE Heat, waste heat, free energy, and find out how we can actually heat everything with using excess or waste heat coming out of other processes, as well as many other sponsors. I would also like to thank publishers and editors-in-chief of the journals that have already announced special issue like Elsevier's Energy, Energy Conversion and Management, Renewable Sustainable Energy Reviews, Journal of Environmental Management, Journal of Cleaner Production, as well as Waste Management and Research, Thermal Science, Journal of Sustainable Development of Energy, Water and Environment Systems, and others which are still in negotiations. In this line, our role as scientists is to look for ways how to improve integration of various life supporting systems as energy, transport, water and environment, and increase efficiencies by using waste from or excess from one system as input to the other. We need to look to the bigger picture and not just the small area of our specialization. The conference is traditionally organized by University of Zagreb and Instituto Superior Tecnico. I would like to ask Professor Zvonimir Guzovic, the Dean of the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture, University of Zagreb, to give a welcome address. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to the 20th Conference on Sustainable Development of Energy, Water and Environment Systems. In my name and on behalf of Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture, University of Zagreb. The Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture, on behalf of University of Zagreb, is one of the conference organizers. Let me just say a few words about the University of Zagreb and the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture. The University of Zagreb, founded in the 1669, is the oldest and biggest university in Southeast Europe. Modern university is since October 1874. University now consists of 30 faculties and 3 academies and has about 63,000 students and 7,000 employees. I would like to convey you all warm greetings and wishes for a successful conference of the Rector of University of Zagreb, Professor Damir Boras. The Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Naval Architecture is founded in 1919. Now, faculty consists of 14 departments, 42 chairs, and 48 laboratories, and has about 400 employees and 2,400 students. As organizer, faculty supports several international conferences, recognizing the importance to the scientific community, especially for the work of young researchers. No doubt, Dubrovnik will be a superb and stimulating setting for both scientific and social aspect of this conference. Finally, I am sure that you will enjoy not only the technical presentation and valuable scientific discussions, but also the local hospitality, culture, food, and sightseeing. I wish all of us a successful conference. Thank you very much for your coming and for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Guzovic, for your kind words. I would like to thank the International Scientific Committee and Scientific Advisory Board that worked day and night, I hope in a nice location like Dubrovnik, not always, to review the submitted abstracts, of which the conference received 1,036 from authors from 61 different countries. For those submissions deemed acceptable, authors were invited to submit a manuscript, and we have received approximately 500 full papers. The papers deemed to be of archival value were then reviewed, of which 277 were accepted as being candidates for further publishing in special issues of journals, for which I would especially like to thank Scientific Advisory Board made of 303 leading scientists. In the end, 551 submissions are expected to be presented at the conference. We have around 560 participants from 61 countries, 265 cities, and 350 universities. We are, well, let's see the flags, where the people come from. But I would like also to go back a little back into the history. We are happy with the fact that this 12th conference created such an interest among researchers making this conference. The first 4 conferences, which were held here in Dubrovnik, had approximately 100 to 150 participants. The 5th one had 320, and then 6th 420, and the 8th 560, and now we are back again to 560. So we are, it seems, at that level. We also started Southeast European series of conference in 2014, and we already had 2 successful ones, and we hope that you will also join us next year to Rio when we start a new series, Latin American series of conferences. If we look at the numbers, the number attended is growing or reaching now a plateau. We might have a record with 563 participants at this conference if you all present papers, if everybody is here. But unfortunately, some people get lost on the way. So we will see what will be the exact number. The list of journals, which are our partners, is quite huge. And as I said, some of them have already offered to organize a special issue after the conference. So I hope that the best of your papers will be published in a year time in one of those, in one of those journals. Also, I would like to bring your attention to a journal we started as a result of this conference on the same topic of sustainable development of energy, water, and environment systems. In 2013, the journal is now in Scopus, and it is also entered Web of Science Emerging Sources Citation Index since 2016. Not yet impact factor, but in a 2 years' time, I hope there will be an impact factor. So just some practical things. I would especially like to thank all the members of the organizing committee who made this conference possible, in particular Daniel, who tried to satisfy all your wild wishes about the program. That was very difficult. Goran, our man in Dubrovnik, who organized all the food and hotel and everything, all the details. Marco, our back office guy with whom you have exchanged many emails. Nevena, who worked on visas and financial issues. Tomislav, our head of staff, and all others who are now here with us and helping us that everything functions well. I would like to ask you to use hashtag SDEWES on Twitter and Facebook when you're sending anything related to the conference, so we can track it and maybe even publish it on the channel, SDEWES Center channel. Also, please tag yourself on those pictures. There will be a group photo session after award session this morning. We will go out in front of the hotel and take a picture and put it on the Facebook, so please tag yourself on the picture. I would like to remind you of the strict policy of the conference that only those papers presented by registered authors at the conference, only presenting author should present the paper, only those will be deemed published. So please bear in mind that. Also, the participation of the sessions will be limited to the registered participants wearing accreditations, as well access to the conference, excursion, dinner, lunches will be limited to those in the possession of these tickets behind. We will have an award session after this session for the most cited papers from previous conferences, and also there will be an award session on Saturday for the best paper and best poster. If you're not able to be present at that session, you need to have a delegate who will take the award for you. And please communicate that to the organizing committee, because we will only award present authors. With this, I would like to proclaim the 12th conference, SDEWES conference, open. SDEWES Center and conferences are supported and partnered by the World Academy of Art and Science, and I would like to invite Honorary President of the Academy and Chair of Scientific Academy Board, Professor Ivo Schlaus, to give an introductory talk on science and politics facing Sustainable Development Goals. Ivo, the floor is yours.
Distinguished participants, it is always very nice to greet you once again here in Dubrovnik. As Neven said, I'm addressing the issue of Sustainable Development Goals and how science and politics are facing them. As you know, 2 years ago, on the occasion of its 70th birthday, the United Nations General Assembly has unanimously adopted the Agenda 2030. The name 2030 is that this is the goal to be achieved by the year 2030. It has the name Sustainable Development Goals. It's composed of 17 goals and 169 targets. And of course, whenever we are faced with certain goals, we have to ask the question, what do we want to do, and how do we want to do, and who is going to do that? And of course, there is no doubt that science plays a crucial role in formulating, finding what the roles are, what the procedures of implementation are. And indeed, these very conferences, which started 15 years ago, actually are a great contributors to the goals that United Nations has proclaimed. Because, of course, as we know, energy, sustainable energy for all, affordable, the one which is indeed sustainable is one goal. As a matter of fact, one of the crucial goals. The other crucial goal is water. The third crucial goal are all environmental systems. So actually, the SDEWES conferences through these 15 years have done tremendously in order to provide what and how to do these things. And the fact, as has been just mentioned by Neven, that we have now a journal which, as a matter of fact, goes into a mainstream is a significant contribution. The other significant contribution in terms of scientific research has been done by the Union of Scientific Organizations. All of the disciplinary organizations are members of the ICSU, as well as all of the members of the United Nations. So what did they do? Just about a year ago, they analyzed these goals to see whether these goals are compatible. So they studied 316 interactions between all of these goals and found out that none of them is contradictory to one another, which is quite a big achievement. Some of them, about 60 of them, are neutral, and more than 200 of them have positive reinforcing mechanisms. And of course, among them, to emphasize it once again, energy and water are the crucial one. Now, of course, comes the question of how do we achieve that and who is supposed to achieve that? And the answer is all of us, all as individuals, all as researchers, all as citizens of various countries, all as students and professors of various universities, members of the various institutes. We are all called to actually accomplish this enormous task, the task on which our very existence, the existence of humankind, exists. Sustainable Development Goals. And as a matter of fact, the third name that actually is added to this Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals is the call, transform our world. Namely, it is clear that the world that we live today is the best ever. However, this world is not sustainable, is self-destructing, and we have to change it. And UN has been very clear about that. We have to change it. And there is what actually falls into the category of what Aristotle called the most important part of the human life, and this is the political activities. Now, of course, it is beyond this talk to actually even try to suggest how we should do this, but let me say a few words how we should not do that. Obviously, one important thing is being humble, being modest. You can say, how is that compatible with the word leader, particularly the leader? But of course, let me jump to my own profession. I am a physicist, and you would definitely not try to study physics with me if I would tell you that I know everything about physics, when even a high school kid knows nowadays that the only thing we understand is less than 5% of the universe, and the remaining 95%, we have no idea what it is, and we have invented names like dark matter and dark energy. It's much more preposterous to think that the leader can provide a blueprint how to carry on all of the intricate complexity of the world which form what is called the politics. So modesty, modesty, and modesty again is one of the essential characteristics of those, all of us, namely, because we are all homo politicus, homo politikon, who have to be engaged in the political things. We have to understand we know quite little and we have to work very hard. The other thing which is needed is the goals are for all of us. The goals are actually involving all of us. So compassion is needed. So the other important thing is for those who are involved in the political activity to be compassionate. And these two things, modesty and compassion, are the essential characteristics of those that will be engaged in this demanding task of realizing, implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivo, for great encouragement. I would like to invite now Professor Maria Graça Carvalho, who is the chair of International Scientific Committee of the SDEWES Center. She is also a member of the World Academy of Science and a new member of European Academy of Science. To give her introductory talk, Policy for Science, Science for Policy, the Case of Energy. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Professor Nevendovic, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by saying that it's a great honor to be invited to give this introductory address to this very well-attended conference, the 12th SDEWES conference. I'm also particularly happy to be associated to this series of conference from the first one, from the beginning, and to attend the conferences in Dubrovnik. I have, I think, attended most of them, and I'm particularly attached to this part of the world. Is enough to look at my list of publications, as I suppose that more than 50% of my co-workers are from this region, so it shows the real collaboration along the times that I have, the research collaboration that I have with all the countries of this region. So I'm very happy to be here, and I hope that you have also a very good stay and a very good conference. In my speech today, I will talk, is mainly divided into two parts. The first one, I will talk about science for policy, and the second part, I will talk about policy for science, so scientific policy, but always focusing on the area of energy and also the water and sustainable development. So starting from the science for policy, and I will mainly talk in the European context, but I think that is relevant for the rest of the world. One of our main concerns and objectives is that our policies are based on sound science. That has been like that all over, and so European Commission based all the decisions in expert groups, independent expert groups, public consultations, staff document. So there is a lot of data and scientific evidence that is gathering before policy comes out from the European Commission. But recently, in the beginning of this commissioner, the commissioner head by President Juncker, we have set up a more systematic way to deal with science advice. And this is very important in times where in some parts of the world there is some denial of scientific facts, and there is a lot of false statements in the social networks. So it's very, very important that we keep our commitment to scientific sound policies. So we have set up, by the request of the President of the European Commission, what we call a science advice mechanism. That is a system that I will explain a little bit, but that provides independent advice that is independent, transparent, and tries to get the best and the more up-to-date scientific knowledge in certain fields. So in order to set up this mechanism and to be independent advice, the Commission has set up a secretariat inside DGRTD, but the science evidence is provided by the academies. So we have requests to the academies, to the 5 academies, the most representative academies in Europe, to get together. So science academies, academies of medicine, academies of engineer, ALEA, Academia Europeia. So they get together, and for a certain subject, they put together a group of experts, the top of experts on that area, and they provide a report with evidence. After this evidence, we have a high-level group of 7 people, also independent, that from that report of evidence translates this report of evidence into policy recommendations. And it's these policy recommendations that are present to the Commissioner for Research and Innovation, Engineer Carlos Moedas, but through him is present to the College and to the President. Of course, we are not doing this for all the subjects that we have to do policies. We are doing this for the more controversial, for the ones that have still uncertainties, scientific uncertainties. But the rest of the policies, they also have their own more, I would say, their own ways to gather evidence. We have many other expert groups being on health, agriculture, food safety. So all the DGs, all the agents have their own, as you probably know, the one that you are more involved in the European affairs, that we have many experts. But this is a system, a more systematic system that deals with the more controversial issues or the ones that are uncertainties. So this is a system that has been in place only since January last year. The first opinion one on emissions on vehicles, as you can imagine, that was a big issue in the European Union, has been very well received, this opinion, and the new legislation that will come out in November about the emissions and how to measure the emissions and the new targets emissions for vehicles, we hope that takes on board the recommendations of this high-level group of this mechanism for science advice. We are at the moment also requesting this science advice mechanism to do an opinion in an area that most of you are familiar or even work with, that is carbon capture and utilization. So, and the question is this, how the CCU contributes to climate, and if yes, how is the best methodology to assess what is the real CO2 saving and what is the time period. Is it a short, long, medium or long-term period where this advantage for climate change of the CCU technologies? This is very important if we want to consider a CCU a climate-friendly technology. If it's eligible for certain funds like the Innovation Fund, we must be sure that consider all the life cycle of the process. The CCU technology is a climate-friendly technology. So, again, there is a group of experts now starting work on that to help the Commission to answer to these questions. There is many other areas that this group is working, but these two are very much related, the CO2 in transport and the CCU, on the subject of this conference. The second part of what I want to transmit is to give you some overview on the policies for science, so the scientific policy. When we have start with this period of the Commission, that is 2014 to 2019, Commissioner Carlos Moedas has put forward a policy framework that the Europeans are familiar with, but non-Europeans, and we have here many non-Europeans. I will just shortly describe this policy. We call it the 3O strategies. That is open innovation, open science, and open to the world. So this means that our scientific and innovation policy needs to be open, open innovation, open science, and it needs to be open to the world. So all our policies, all our funds, they are open to the participation of all the countries in the world that we have diplomatic relations, and we very much incentivize the collaboration because we are convinced that new ideas and innovation come from diversity, come from different cultures working together, from different sensitivities working together. So we have, and we are very proud to say that our programs are the most open programs in the world. And this is that is something that we praise very much. The open innovation is that we consider that in order to innovate, you need to network and you also need to have the right ecosystem. And what we mean for that is not enough to have a very good and well-financed research program and even a system to finance innovation if you don't have in place in your society the right ecosystem that allows the knowledge to flow to economy and to society. And we call that the innovation ecosystem. And to have a good innovation ecosystem, there is several conditions that are required that sometimes do not depend only on are not European policies. The most of them, or several of them, are member state policies, like the labor legislation, like to have less bureaucracy, to have an environment that is friendly for business, to have a tax system that incentivizes new enterprises and innovation and startups. So all these conditions are part of an ecosystem that is very, very important. And we, at the same time that we promote innovation, funding innovation, we also try to promote near the member states that they set up the right ecosystem for innovation to flourish. The open science is that we due mainly to the whole technological revolution and the digital revolution, the way we do science, the way we communicate science, the way we publish science is completely different nowadays. Again, we promote the policy that the system should be open in all the stages, and mainly we promote the open access to publication and the open data. And this is now the policy of all our programs funded by the European Commission. They should have published in open access, and the data should be open. If for some reason the data cannot be open, the consortium needs to justify, and this justification needs to be accepted. The open to the world, as I explained, is a policy that makes us to have our programs completely open to the rest of the world, and we incentivize that, and we have special parts of our funding program that is Horizon 2020 that is special devoted to the cooperation with certain regions. I just want to give you an example that is important for the south of Europe, that is PRIMA, is a new partnership, it's quite new, very recently established, on water and food, is the cooperation with the Mediterranean. So member states and countries in North Africa and in the Mediterranean region have joined this partnership, and there is a separate management of this initiative, and the ones that are interested on these areas, I incentivize you to look at these programs of PRIMA, because there will be calls for proposals that you can apply. Mainly, one of the main topics of PRIMA is exactly water, all the water issues. And this is the part of the policy, and to make, to apply this policy, we have our research and innovation program that I'm very proud that I was one of the rapporteurs when I was in the European Parliament. That is called Horizon 2020. Is a program that combines, as I told you, research and innovation, so the whole cycle of the innovation chain. Has also a budget of 79 billion euros. Is a program for 7 years, from 2014 until 2020. We are now issuing the last work program that is for 18, 19, and 20. And is mainly divided in 3 areas. The one that we call pillars. The first pillar is the excellence pillar with the European Research Council, the Marie Curie, the infrastructures, the FET, Future Emerging Technologies. We have a second pillar on the more industrial leadership, and we have a third pillar on the societal challenge, where you have the societal challenge for clean energy, and also you have one societal challenge that includes the environment, the climate change, and wastes. There will be plenty of areas in energy, water, environment, climate change in the work program of 2018, 19, and 20. And I draw your attention that on Saturday there will be at 9 o'clock a workshop organized by 3 national contact points. I suppose, if I'm not mistaken, German, UK, and Ireland, that will explain you the different mechanisms. That is not so easy. I try as a rapporteur to simplify the program, but I still think that the program needs a further simplification. So on that session you can listen to all the different mechanisms and the priorities in the area of energy. So the ones that are interested on European programs will be very good to attend this session. I want now to finish talking to you a little bit about the next steps and the next framework program. So a preliminary proposal for the 9th and innovation program need to be present. So the initiative is the European Commission. So the European Commission needs to present its own position, its own paper, before the summer next year, 2018. Of course, it needs to be after the overall European budget, what we call the MFF, the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, that we expect soon. So after we know the overall orientations for the budget, the proposal for the FP9 will be presented. We have some guidelines that are already public for the FP9. Our commissioner in a large conference on the 3rd of July this year in Brussels has set up, has laid out the lines of FP9, the main lines of FP9. And in summary, what he has told us is that he considers, and everyone, I suppose, considers Horizon 2020 quite successful. I think that the problem of Horizon 2020 is that it was so successful that the rate of success was very low. So you have to submit a lot of proposals to get some proposals accepted, and this means that we are not financing a large number of very good proposals. And that is a loss of effort and time and money from our research and innovation community. So this has been probably the main question in Horizon 2020. So we should keep what is good in Horizon 2020, and there is a lot of things that are good in Horizon 2020, like supporting the best science through the European Research Council, the fact that the program is simple. I suppose it can be even a bit simpler, and let's try that we can even go further in the simplification. The decision to bring research and innovation together. So these are features that we will continue. So we should keep what has been working well. But in order to see what can be improved, the Commission has asked an independent group chaired by Pascal Lamy, a former European Commission, and he has put together a group of top, very high-level experts, and they have just, that was released on 3rd of July also, the report where they have recommendations what can improve for FP9. And they have 11 recommendations. The report is public, so I'm not going to go through these 11 recommendations, but probably I will like to stress the main recommendations of this report. The first recommendation, and this is not the European Commission that is recommended, is the independent group that is recommended. This is important to be said. The first recommendation is that the budget should be much bigger, and they recommend a double of the budget for Horizon 2020. This is nice for the ones that work in research inside the European Commission. It means that the independent group appreciates and wants to appreciate the program, appreciates our work, and wants to see more budget put in this program. This recommendation is in line with the European Parliament. There was a recent report by an MEP from Spain that also requests a budget of 120 billion compared with the 79-80 billion of today. It's a report of Soledad Cabezón Ruiz, that was the rapporteur of the midterm review of Horizon 2020. So the remaining 10 recommendations of the Lamy report we can summarize and extract some key message. One of the key messages is that we should look at the whole picture. We should not look only to a technology, a single phenomenon. No, we need to have an holistic approach, and we need to look at the whole picture. Another recommendation is that we should focus more on person, on the researcher, on the innovator. We already do this with the researchers. The European Research Council is very much on this line to focus on the researcher, but the recommendation there is that we should do the same also in the innovation side. And the third recommendation, that we should, our program should inspire Europe, and one example is through mission-driven research and innovation. So we are now analyzing all this reporting and discussing and consulting a lot of people, and in order to prepare the proposal, the European Commission of FP9. But one of the novelties that we already are going to have a pilot phase during work program 18-20 is the European Innovation Council, that goes in line with this focus on the person, focus on the innovator. So in a similar structure to the ERC, we will have a European Innovation Council, more for the innovation. Of course, that needs to function different and have different criteria from the ERC, because innovation is a completely different matter and a completely different nature than research. So all the indicators, all the way to evaluate needs to be rethinking, but is the same spirit of identifying the best innovators and to help the innovators. On the missions driven, we are analyzing that recommendation. It goes a bit online with the societal challenge, but more ambitious, involving the society and being global. As far as the holistic approach, this is very important, not only to be multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary issues, but also linked to other policies. The Lamy report gives the example of education. We need to be much closer to education, and we can do this through the EIT. So our program and our project should also have these components of other policies like the education. But we also should link in the health research to health policy. We should also link in the agriculture with agriculture policy. So we have to look at things in a much more holistic way. So if you are a project in cancer, you should also link to do the research, but have in mind the treatment, the clinical phase, the prevention, so not to be closed in a box, but looking at the whole picture. And this gives us also the ground to pursue with something that we have started in Horizon 2020, that is to do synergies with other funds, like the regional funds, like the agriculture funds, and the member states and private and foundation funds. So if we want to tackle big issues like climate change, we should put together efforts, not only Horizon or FP9, but to try to do synergies with other programs, with other foundations, with other budgets that are available. I give you the example that we have been successful doing this. We have a large program on malaria, AIDS and tuberculosis, where we join efforts with different foundations, with the Gates Foundation, Gulbenkian Foundation, with the member states. So we have put together a very impressive budget, because it really is a question that needs to be tackled with a lot of effort, with a high budget, and not to disperse efforts. We are working all together, and has been a very, very successful program. So we hope in the missions that for the decision and for the definition of the missions, that we have the input of the researchers and the society at general. So we hope that FP9, and special the missions oriented, is an exercise of co-design with the researchers, with the scientists, with the innovators, and with the society. We really want, one of the difference between FP9 and Horizon 2020 is that in FP9 we will be able to involve much more the citizens, the people, in all the phases of the program, from the definition to the research phase, to the implementation phase, to the dissemination. So the co-design with the society, it will be an important feature of FP9 and any research and innovation program in the future. So let me conclude that I've tried to lay out what we are working at the moment in Europe, and many areas that are exactly in the field of competence of the people here attending this conference. It's a very interesting conference. Our commissioner usually says that these top 4 priorities are energy, food, water, and climate, and you are working in 3 of them. So it's this. We will look to the conclusions and the findings and the discussions of this conference with a lot of interest. And I hope that this conference is also very successful, and you bring home a lot of new ideas, and you also enjoy your stay in this beautiful town and with the fantastic weather. Thank you very much.